Today we want to talk about one of the questions that we get asked the most out of all of the questions we get asked. This is the number one question we get asked.
I don't know why it's taking us so long to do this video too, because
I don't know.
We're always asked this question.
The question is that we get asked the most out of any other questions is, how much money do you make? We've never really addressed it head on. We've just kind of given some averages, and the reason is because there's a lot of factors that can affect pay. And just because we make a certain dollar amount a year or a week or a month does not mean that that's what you're going to make out here when you get out here.
Yeah, it's going to be different for everybody. There's a lot of factors that determine how much you can make, and we're going to go over a list of them. We're gonna tell you guys how much we made in 2015.
We pulled up our numbers.
We
and
pulled
we have
our numbers
it right
up,
here
how
exactly
much we
what we
grossed,
made,
how much the owner made, how much we made, how much we paid for fuel and everything. But we want to go over this list of factors first, because just because we made a certain amount doesn't mean you'll make the same amount. You could make more. So there's just so many variables in this equation, and that's why you always see such a wide range of answers from people when you ask different folks. Like, you may ask us, we'll tell you one number. You'll ask another expediter, they're going to tell you another number. So it's just going to always vary. One thing to think about is, if you're asking how much you're going to make each week, that's kind of the wrong question. You want to think on a broader scale, because weekly is just, it varies so much.
Because this business is so up and down.
But our yearlies have been fairly consistent. We've been in the same ballpark year after year, except for our first year, about how much we make. But our weekly varies greatly. You know, we can make $500 in 1 week. We can make $3,000 in 1 week. Or more. It varies so hugely. What runs did you get? Did you go coast to coast? Did you stay local? You know, and we're going to go over this list of factors can determine how much you're going to make. So,
and then we'll tell you exactly what we made last year. Some of the factors that are going to affect your pay, first of all, is if you're driving for an owner or you own your own vehicle. That's a big factor, because when you drive for an owner, that owner is going to be getting a cut of what you make the truck. If you own the truck, you're getting all of the revenue that you make that truck. It also depends on the percentages that your owner gets. You know,
we're on a 60-40 split where we get the 60% and we pay fuel. Or there's other drivers out there, which is the more common one. The driver gets 40% and has no expenses.
Right. And that varies too. There's some companies that do what is like a 38,
35,
62.
36%.
Yeah. So,
very, very few. The standard is 40-60 or 60-40.
So with us driving for an owner and you going to be driving for an owner, that still doesn't mean that you're going to make the same as we do, because you may not be getting the same percentage or the same terms in your contract as we do. So the next thing is what carrier you drive for. Different carriers offer different pay rates. Not all of the carriers offer the same pay rate to everybody. We drive for Panther, we get a certain amount of dollars. If we went to, say, Bolt, with the same qualifications, we may get a different pay rate. If we drive for Panther and you go and you're going to be driving for Bolt or Load One, Tri-Hours, you may not get the same rate we're getting.
Another factor is your qualifications. Do you have your passport? Do you have your hazmat? Do you have your TWIC card? Do you do DOD? All these different qualifications can make you more money with less miles. Can you make you more money if you're running more miles? For instance, with Panther pays an extra 5 cents per mile to teams or solos who have their hazmat. And that's on all run. So if I run 150,000 miles in 1 year and I have my hazmat, even if I do hazmat loads or not, some will be hazmat, some won't. But that's an extra $7,500 a year total that you can end up making. That's a big number. That's a really big number to not get your hazmat. That's one factor. Having your TWIC card, you don't get paid extra for that, but you'll have more load opportunities if a load requires you to have that TWIC card. Or even if you're the last driver on the list, if a load requires a TWIC card and you have it and nobody else does, you're going to get loaded before anybody else. So that's one factor that can help increase your pay per year.
Even the passport, you don't necessarily get paid extra per mile because of a passport, but it opens up the more load opportunities because now you can go in and out of Canada. So that just opens up more loads and ultimately more revenue to your bottom line.
And depending on what company you work for instance, Panther, they pay an extra $150 to go across the border and $75 to bring a load back. Mm-hmm. And that's just on top of your regular rate. So it's not a lot, but it adds up. You do that enough, that could add up to big money per year.
The next factor is if you're a solo versus a team. That's a major factor. Most times a solo driver isn't going to make as much as a team does. With a solo, you're not going to maybe run as many miles. You won't be able to run as long of runs in a short amount of time. So that's a big factor, So if you're a solo and we're a team, our numbers aren't going to be the same. Another thing is how often you go home. Jason and I, we typically strive to stay out about 2.5 months. Sometimes it's a little less, sometimes it's a little more, but our goal is always to at least stay out 2.5 months. Now, if you're a person that wants to be home once a month or every month and a half, every 6 weeks,
stay out 3 weeks, go home a week,
right.
3 weeks, you're going to have less miles than what we would run,
Right. And there's nothing wrong with that. People have families, they have houses they need to go home to and things to attend to, and there's nothing wrong with that. But the more often you go home, the less money you're going to be making because it's not like a regular job where you're getting paid vacation time. So if you're not running, you're not getting paid.
The more you stay out, the more you make.
Right. Next thing is going to be experience, whether you're a newbie versus a veteran driver. We've told you this a couple of times, I know, in the past. When our whole first year was a crap year. We were learning, we were new, we were trying to learn the business. We hadn't got all of our qualifications yet. It took us about a year to get everything. And when you're new, you're still trying to learn the ropes, and you're not going to probably be bringing in the revenue as somebody who's been out here for several years. It's taken us 4 years to get where we're at right now. That's a big factor. So being new, you're going to start out probably making a little bit less, but if you hang in there and you learn, that's when you're going to start making the money.
Absolutely. It's a goal to work towards, If you're getting out here thinking that we're out here making the riches and you want to get into the job for that, you don't get into this job to get rich. You get into this job because you love it. The money will follow. Mm-hmm. It's not something you just jump into and make a buttload of money. I don't even think we make a buttload of money now. We just manage our money right. We make it work for us, mm-hmm. and we enjoy our job. So yeah. It's not like we're really working,
we're traveling and we're seeing the country and getting paid for it.
Getting paid,
and that's another thing. It's not that we're making a ton more of money than what we did when we had our 9-to-5 jobs, but we're running the rat race, a 9-to-5 job every day, coming home. We had a house payment, we had 2 car payments, living pretty much paycheck to paycheck. And now the position we're at, we don't have all of those bills. What's a good amount of money for us may not be a good amount for you. We had somebody comment asking us about pay. Jason replied, and he was like, well, if you're not making that much more than what you were doing, why are you even doing it? Well, it's not because we're out here trying to get rich. We're out here because we enjoy being our own boss.
We enjoy this lifestyle.
We love to travel. And we, don't get me wrong, we do make a good living doing this, and we are going to retire. What's good for us? What's comfortable for us?
What's good for us right. might not be good for you, you know.
Next thing and last thing that I have written down here is the type of vehicle that you drive and the vehicle equipment, cargo van versus straight truck versus tractor trailer. Depending on what type of vehicle you're in, you're going to get paid differently.
Different rates.
You're going to be doing different runs.
For us, we're in a straight truck, but then there's still different configurations for straight truck. You got trucks with a lift gate. You got reefer trucks. You got trucks with a third axle so they can carry more weight. All of those can play factors too on how much you make, but they can some of them can also hinder how much you make. For instance, a lift gate. If all you plan on doing is running automotive, lots of automotive stuff,
which is a lot of what you'll do if you don't get any of the other qualifications.
I know, for instance, there's a Ford plant that will not unload a truck if it has a lift gate, and my understanding of that is because they're dock hooks that hook onto the bumper of the truck and lock the truck in there. You can't do that with the lift gate. So having a lift gate, if those are the only kind of loads you're going to be running, can actually hurt you. Now, if you get qualifications like, for instance, we have our DOD. The entire time, 4 years we've been at this, we've never had a truck with a lift gate. But it's not so much needed for us. Could it help us a little bit more? Possibly.
That's a big factor, type of vehicle and the type of equipment that your vehicle has.
Yep. If your truck has a lift axle, you can carry more weight. So you have more load opportunities. That's why there's such a vague answer when you ask somebody how much you can make per week, per month, per year. There are so many different variables.
Now, the big question, the big reveal, how much money did we make? First of all, before I talk about that, I want to say the biggest thing you need to do when you get out here is track your numbers. You need to know how much money you're making, how much money you're spending. It doesn't matter how you do it, just do it. So we've tracked our numbers ever since we've been out here for the last 4 years, and we figured we would pull 2015 last year because that was a whole year, and we were going to let you know exactly what we made. In 2015, what we grossed this truck was $234,000 for all of last year. Now, if you want to break that down into a weekly number, that's about $4,500 a week. Now, keep in mind, that's before any expenses. We do pay our fuel, and that's also before the owner gets his cut. Now, if we owned this truck, we would have banked all of that $234,000 before our expenses.
That's before expenses.
Before fuel, before maintenance, before anything we pay for.
Repairs, oil changes, everything.
Now, our expenses for last year came out to be about $150,600. Now, those expenses include fuel. It also includes the 40% our owner takes from the money that we make the truck. Our biggest expense is fuel. Every year, that's our biggest expense. And fuel last year was $40,585 is what we paid in fuel all of last year. Any supplies for the truck that we could write off, that was our next biggest expense. That ran about $6,000. Communications, which is our phones, internet, things that we use to do our job out here, that was $5,300.
These are our expenses, you know. You might not have as much expenses like this, but we're just showing some numbers. After our total expenses, we made a gross of $83,300. Now, out of that, we got to deduct our per diem, so we didn't pay taxes on the 83. So, but that equals to about $40,000 each, which we're happy with, you know. Heather's even got here, it was $1,600 per week.
That's an average,
That's an average. If you break down the total amount for the year, divided by the 52 weeks, which we didn't work 52 weeks, we probably worked 10 months out of the year. Those 2 months we were off, but we just divided the total by 52 weeks, and it came out to $1,600 per week. So if you want to divide that by 2, that's about $800 per week.
that's an average for a week. And like we said in the beginning, there's some weeks we may make $500 or some weeks we may make $4,000. And that's why when people ask, well, how much can you make a week? It's so hard to say, because of those factors. Like Jason said, you really need to look at the big picture. And that's why we wanted to tell y'all exactly how much we made last year. These are real numbers. We're not trying to hide anything.
We just don't want to tell you you're going to make $2,000 a week, because you're not going to make $2,000 every week.
Yeah, so
not every week.
We wanted to share that with you. We're not out here trying to brag what we make, or some people may not even think that that's a lot of money. But there's a lot of factors, and when we do eventually own our own truck, we're going to be making a lot more.
We'll make more,
and that's our goal.
That's our goal.
That's our end goal. We hope that helps those of you who are kind of wondering, gosh, how much money can you make? And hope that kind of explains why we're kind of vague on it. And we wanted to do this video so when we do get asked this question in the future, we can link this video to those questions so people can watch it and see the factors that do affect that. So if any of you have any questions about the pay, what the numbers we've shared, we'll be happy to answer those. Find us on Facebook, leave a comment below, send us an email. You know how to contact us, and we'll definitely answer any of the questions that you have about that. Thank you all so much for watching and subscribing, and until our next video, peace, love, and expediting.
Scratch.